Hello, welcome to my channel, Fieros the Fuckface, Fieros Reborn. Welcome to me. Hello, Buddha. How are you today? Nice to see you. See you nice. Put you here. I'm going to talk to you. So, hello. Welcome. Fieros' story time. I am the Fieros. Oh, yes, I am. Oh, are those sweat patches? Ah, are they? Well, if they are, they seem to have blended into the same colour as the stupid put, isn't it? Same colour as the actual. That's amazing. Where have my sweat patches gone? How is this? It's hot. It is hot. Oh, they are there. So why am I doing that in the video? Hello, welcome back. Fieros' story time. It's about an hour. I will cut it off at around the hour mark, so you should be looking at an hour's long video. Ha ha ha! Meaty topics, meaty listenings. I feel like it's too bright in here right now because the time is 20 past midnight, even though this is the time that I always do it. Let's try it. Spookificade. Let's put it back on. I don't. That's too bright. Whatever. So, yesterday, I had a bit of a tough time at the beginning of the video. I found it quite emotional, and I released a lot of stuff there. Come on. Ow. Bah. Ah, that really. Look at that. Can you see that? It's made a dent in my finger. Yeah, so that really yesterday was tricky to begin with. But it was good. But I released some stuff, you know. Everything, a lot of stuff. Released a lot of stuff in the old throat area, throat and shoulders, and a bit on the chest as well. Blah. You know, when I was speaking about my granddad and talking to the Buddha, specifically talking to the Buddha about it, made me cry, because I feel like the Buddha is talking to some very caring divine principle. It's not talking to a little statue. I'm talking to something more than that when I direct things to it. I'm trying to find something to sort of angle him towards me and put this underneath his front of him, and then because he's not paying attention, and that does frustrate me. I'm not going to lie. That's the honest truth. I have some kind of attention needs, and if people aren't paying attention to me when I'm listening, when I'm talking to them, it annoys me. So the Fieros the story time. I'm trying to tell the story, and it's a major story in my life, of how I went from being 18 years old, young, fresh, full of enthusiasm for life, full of dreams, full of hopes, full of aspirations, full of a bit of turmoil as well in the mind, a bit of depression in there. But overall, the thrust of my life, I felt, was going in the upward direction towards my dreams of being a successful band musician, and maybe even a successful artist, and maybe even a successful comedian. I hadn't thought of literature as being an option. I hadn't thought of literature, writing books, as being an option for myself. Maybe it was somewhere as an option in the background, but I wasn't really up for it, you know. I was great at English at school. It was one of my best subjects, and it was a subject where I felt like not only was I good at it, but I felt like I was really, really good at it. You know, like the teacher always would write things like I had flair and well, flair, flair for language, like a real understanding of language and using language very intelligently, I suppose, when I was writing. So he would always say things like this, that my writing had this sense of flair about it, that it was very strong. And yeah, and I suppose that really reinforced in me an idea or a feeling that I'm really, really good at this topic, this thing. And I'm also getting this praise, this positive feedback for it, and I feel like I'm being nourished somehow, that I'm being recognized, yeah, recognized by my teacher. And I found him to be a very wise teacher, not just in the classroom topics, but he was wise about life. You know, he wasn't phased by much, and he understood what he was about. He had strong values, and a strong sense of what is quality in life, and what makes him happy, and what is a sort of sense of depth to him. I found him to have a sense of depth. He was also a bit of an arrogant tosser who would like make sure that everything was done his way, but that was mainly in the drama. When he would direct plays, he was very kind of prescriptive over how things should be done in that way. So his version of the meaning of things was very tight. And that worked well in the English literature scenario to some degree, because he had a really deep sense of what was going on in a book and what was trying to be conveyed, and he had a very deep appreciation for what was being delivered through a book, and an understanding of what the situations that in the book were describing. And he had a very good grasp of like all the implications that were underneath all the words, and how they kind of reflected to true human experiences and true human emotions, and that was brilliant. That was excellent. And he would also occasionally, he was the only teacher who did this, which was I found amazing, was he would just tell us stories about his life, like usually adventure stories. So he used to speak about his time. Well, there were different topics that he would speak about. He spoke about his previous experiences in previous teaching roles in different schools. So he would tell us about stupid students, like this one particular student who was like constantly curling her hair and chewing gum and be like, "What's that?" Whatever, like that. And I think that was a kind of moral story to don't be like that person. And then he had another like set of stories about his traveling days, where he went off round. I can't remember where it was. Was it Thailand or New Zealand or somewhere? And he would tell stories about, I don't know, what was it, buying a knobkerry, which is, he obviously told the story for the fact of the word of knobkerry, because it's an amusing word for us, and I still find it quite. What is a knobkerry? Knob. It's a knobkerry walking stick. So he obviously found that 19th century African war club knobkerry killing stick. Ooh. So he found that amusing to talk about the fact that he was walking around using a knobkerry, and there's some kind of potential for using it to whack people, I think. So that was good. And then he told another story quite early on, in our teaching experience with him. He told us a story about him facing up to an adult or something when he was younger, and finally understanding a sense of what I get from the story is that he was telling a story about some tree was being cut down, and he stood up to someone about it, and he was only 8 or something. I can't really remember the details, to be honest, but what I took from it was something like he had learned an inner independence somehow, that he knew his own value, somehow through the story that panned out. He knew that he knew something about life there. That it was about knowing himself in contrast to others, like knowing that there is something important. I can't remember, about being true to himself, something like that. That's what I take from it anyway. And he would always say this other phrase as well in class, which was about career. He was he would, okay, so he had lots of different rants that he would go on, but he would be upset about how the national curriculum was so prescribed, which is interesting considering he was a very prescriptive person in those drama settings. He'd be very annoyed about how, like, he had to mark things in a certain way, and he had to use all these different criteria to mark things, whereas he would like to sort of mark them in his own way, I imagine, just go, yeah, I like it or I don't like it, or give it a grade based on how he feels about it. I don't know, but he didn't like the fact that he had to mark things according to a certain criteria, and how the sort of joy of it, I suppose, was being taken out of everything because you're having to hit targets and make sure that people were writing in a specific kind of way and things like this. So he wasn't happy about that. So he'd rant about that every now and again, the national curriculum and what the new. There was always new things being imposed upon teachers as to how they were supposed to teach what they were teaching. So I think he wasn't a fan of the lack of freedom that was being dictated to him by the government and the, what do you call it, the Ministry of Teaching. I don't know what it is. Education Authority? I don't know. But anyway, the national curriculum, that stuff. So he would rant about that. He would also rant about Thatcher occasionally, and it was just all going over our heads because we didn't really know what he was going on about. Certainly didn't know what he was going on about, but I think he didn't like Thatcher, or maybe it was better with Thatcher. I can't remember. Yeah, I think he was sort of like not happy with Thatcher, Margaret Thatcher, that is. So he would talk about that, and then the adventure stories as well, and amusing stories, but also stories that made me feel like there was something interesting in life. You know, that it wasn't all just boring, mind-numbing school stuff. That there is life. There is a big, wide world, a big, exciting, interesting, varied life, a rich life to be tasted, all around us. And the thing I was going to mention about before was the career thing. So he spoke about career. He would always say, because he was going on about how there was all this career information that people, like, students were being forced into deciding their career by the time they'd finished school in sixth form, so that people were pressurizing students, so teachers and government type of bodies, whatever, were pressurizing students to have formulated their whole life basically in advance, and to have their careers figured out in advance based on, like, I don't know, whatever it was supposed to be, and kind of choosing subjects based on a future career path rather than choosing subjects based on what they enjoy, what they actually want to do for themselves now, you know, what they're good at, what they like, what they feel they're strong in. And so he was advising us, I suppose, towards understanding ourselves and making our choices based on what we actually want to do for our own lives, not based upon what other people think is good for us to do in our lives, if that makes sense. So he was trying to direct us towards doing what we enjoy, and his little phrase that he would say was, do what you enjoy and the career will find you. And he would keep saying that. I remember him just saying that over and over again, not just like in a row. Do what you enjoy and the career will find you. Do what you enjoy and the career will find you. But it was a message that really sank in for me over the years, because I had this teacher between year 7 and year 9, I believe. Well, it was like year 7 and 8, and then I missed out having him on year 9, and then had him again in year 10 or something, and I don't know. But I had him as a teacher there in the background, on and off, pretty much throughout my whole um, school life. And he was like a kind of wise Gandalf type figure. You know, he was a tall guy, really skinny, gingery beard, bald head with a sort of bowl type haircut. It looked like, I don't know what he looked like. Dandruff, always dandruff on his shoulders. You know, nothing. It wasn't particularly kind of attractive person, but his spirit was really zestful, if that makes sense. A lot of people were terrified by him, absolutely terrified by him. But I kind of liked him, and he liked me as well. Not in a gay way. That sounds really weird. Why have I said that? He responded really well to the way I wrote, and later on, after school, I went back to just talk to him because he was like my favourite teacher, and I looked up to him and I respected what he said. And I actually shared with him some stuff that I'd like written in this kind of book, and he was quite concerned about it. I heard from other people because I'd basically written a load of garbled nonsense, and he sort of read it. And what I hear from other people was that he'd read my stuff and gone, yeah, no, it's very interesting. And then he's sort of thinking, oh my god, this person's insane. He said to me, he said, oh, you're going through a restructuring, which I think was polite for, you're obviously going insane. But I took that as like, yes, I am going through a restructuring. Anyway, so his main point was, do what you enjoy and the career will find you. It hasn't worked. I'll tell you that now. I'm 32 years old. The career hasn't fucking found me, but I do what I enjoy. He could have put a little tagline on the end, which was, do what you enjoy and the career will find you. And if it doesn't find you, at least you're happy. Maybe that should be part of it. So I suppose I followed that advice. It just felt like that was true. That was the right way. I understood that was something of truth, you know? That it wasn't just kind of like, I don't know, that it felt like a wisdom to follow, that is a true wisdom. And whether I did it consciously or not, I did follow, and I have been following that little nugget. And I suppose if I spoke to him now, he'd probably say, oh yeah, that's just, no, don't worry about that. I say that to everyone. But I think that it's meaningful, and you should go for what you enjoy in life, and you should use that as your direction in life as to what brings you meaning, what brings you joy and passion and fun and excitement. Yeah, and what makes you happy, and that you shouldn't be living your life by other people's standards, basically, and living your life as to how it looks to other people. You should live your life as to what really turns your juices flowing, you know, that gets you in the zone and excited and zestful for life. Yeah, okay. So, but I hadn't considered, the only thing I'd considered about English for a possible career would be journalism. And I honestly didn't know what journalism was. I'd heard it somewhere, journalist, be a journalist. And I thought to myself, just occasionally, I might be a journalist. When people ask me, I might be a journalist. I don't actually know what it was. Not really. I thought maybe I might write for newspapers. I think I applied to work in a newspaper office for a bit and I didn't get it or something. I just thought, well, whatever. And then I suddenly became interested in music. Yeah, because a lot of my friends were into music. Most important childhood friend who I met at primary school we then formed a band later on, and she was always writing music. She was writing songs on the piano from like, I don't know, probably towards the end of primary school. So I just remember her as being a musical person, and she would write songs and then get everyone to sing them and stuff, and it was very like, whoa, that's, I don't know, it seemed odd but cool. Like, in a way, people made fun of her for her stepping out and trying something bold. Um, but I respected her for it, even though I made fun of her and I respected her. It's like, those weird paradoxes, like when you love someone, you be mean to them. This is like primary school, secondary school tactics. It was like that. It was like I really respected her for what she was doing, and I loved her for what she was doing, and then I'd be mean to her and take the piss out of her, and like pick on the tiniest bits that were sort of a flaw in what she was doing, and and secretly think that she's the most amazing person ever. Silliness. So yeah, so she was doing that, and then my other friend, my kind of arch nemesis, evil twin friend, who was taller than me, gingerer than me. These are all the things I felt at the time. I don't feel them now, but he was taller than me for sure, gingerer than me, more arrogant than me, but therefore more confident than me. I felt like he was better looking than me, but now it doesn't seem that way. We're either like kind of equal or what, I don't know. But at the time, I perceived him to be better looking than me. So he was like this kind of, he was better at the guitar than I was. He was better at drawing than I was. Um, he had more cool stuff than I did. So his guitars were all like more expensive and better quality. And so I was like the cheap, poor, ugly, oh dear, less talented version of this guy. That's how I felt anyway. And that resentment would come out every now and again, and I'd try and beat him up, and then I'd get pummeled because basically he was bigger than me and could just throw me around. But I resented him and felt picked on by him, yet I hung around with him. So like we were friends because we were interested in all the same things. I suppose I idolized him to begin with, and then I kind of took all the things that he was good at, and I used that as a leadership to what I wanted to do. So I wanted to get into drawing because I wanted to, I guess, compete with him, but also be like him. So I was worshipping him in a way, but wanting to do things in my own way. So like he would draw on his exercise books, sorry. He would draw on his exercise books little drawing symbols, and they were pretty cool, and I was like, oh, I've got to think of my own ones now. And then another friend of mine was doing the same thing, like making his little kind of cartoon chicken thing, and this evil nemesis guy was doing like this little trout thing and called it hot trout. And my other friend, who is this kind of grungy guy, and those two were friends from primary school, he was this kind of grungy, whack, really naughty, bad child, but was very fun at the same time. So he was always getting in trouble, and he had a horrendous family life, but he was always doing the out there thing and getting in trouble because he was always kind of doing the thing that just takes it too far in any context to break a rule. So but he was intensely creative as well. So he was into the guitar, and he was into his drawing and symbols and whatever. And so he had these kind of creative people either side of me who were both bad as well. They're bad boys. They were not good boys. No, they were not the good ones. They were the naughty boys. They're both always in detention all the time. Possibly at the same time for doing stupid things together. But that was cool. It was fun, and I was always the good boy. I would never get myself in trouble because of these idiots. I was always I was the proper highly intelligent boffin guy, who would take all the things that I suppose that I saw that I liked in what they were doing, and then just not do the bad stuff that got me in trouble, basically. So I didn't break rules. The worstest thing that I would do was like, I did a couple of stupid things in secondary school, but there weren't anything particularly bad. I stood up. Well, there was this rule that when a teacher comes into the room at the beginning of a lesson at my old school, everyone had to stand up. So you had to stand up and then wait to be told to sit down. And at one point, the history teacher, bumbling old fool person who like no one listened to and no one could understand. We could understand, it was just so boring. One of those persons who'd been teaching for like all his life and just obviously got stuck at a certain point and then just maintained that same voice for the rest of his life. Like, he got stuck. Maybe he said one thing that he thought was really good, and then he just stayed in that tonality for the rest of his life. And there's really monotone teachers. It was like that. And he had no personality whatsoever. And any personality that he did have was weird and not fun and just boring and odd and old and smelly and with weird, stupid teacher style hair, with dandruff as well. And you're just like, weird. No relatability kind of thing. You couldn't kind of feel like he was a person. So yeah, and so we had a history lesson. I think it must have been about ancient China, because we went through the Chinese dynasties. I swear I would have loved to actually have learned that stuff, but the way it was taught was just so boring. Oh man, so boring, like so boring. Anyway, yeah. So we had this rule where you had to stand up when the teacher comes into class, right? Everyone did it. It was like it was a school rule that when the teacher came into the class, you all had to stand up behind your chairs or in your chairs or whatever it was, I don't know. And then they would tell you to sit down. It's kind of like to maintain the sort of authority between teachers and students. Teachers authority, students. So you obey the first command, which is to sit down, and then you continue to do what I say for the rest of it. So one point he told us to sit down, and I just carried on standing like a rebel. And he came over to me and he said, "Why are you standing up?" And I said, I've got a bit of a dodgy back," which is obviously a lie. I said, yeah, I've got a dodgy back. And he said, "Right, well, you normally would get a dodgy back at my sort of age, not at a young age like you." And I went, "Yeah, well," and I stood up for like most of the class, and then I just sat down of my own accord because it was getting annoying to stand up the whole time. So that was my rebellion. I will not bow to your stupid standing and sitting rule again and again and again and again. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Whereas people were doing cooler ways of breaking rules, like throwing paper aeroplanes at sleeping teachers, stuff like that. And like, I don't know what my two friends actually got in trouble for. This one got in trouble. I don't know whether the teacher knew that he was wanking in class. I don't even know if he was wanking in class, but he was certainly making the movement like he was doing it, and he was telling everyone that he was doing it. But he got sent out, and I don't know whether the teacher knew that that's why. Because teachers are really stupid. Some teachers, they're not really paying attention to what the kids are doing at all. They're not being observant whatsoever. So, like, they're just rambling on their fucking topic or whatever. And basically, as long as the kids are not making loads of noise, they're not really paying attention to the children at all. Children. young people, young adults, teenagers. So, well, it depends on the teacher, obviously. But most teachers, they weren't very observant, so you could do whatever, and as long as you weren't being loud about it, you could get away with anything. Having a wank, having a wank in German. I don't mean like in the language of German, in the German class. But he wasn't like. There's no specific German wanking style that I'm aware of. There might be though. I'll leave that to your imagination. The German wanking style. German subtitles. I'm having a wank in German. German subtitles. Alright. Sorry I'm eating. I need a break, mate. So all of these things that preceded this led to me ending up in a psychiatric ward. All of them. That's all. It all happened that way. That's why I ended up in the psych ward. Because I stood up to the teacher, quite literally, and then sat down of my own accord. Oh, a little fart is brewing. I can feel it brewing. There you go. Ooh, good thing is no smell-o-vision, eh? So, very vegetably. Smell like Chinese. Okay. I think I'm funny, even if no one else does. Okay. Wow. So I met Mrs. A in secondary school. She showed up in like year 8. I think she was a year older than everyone else because she came from South Africa, and I guess it was something to do with the difference in the school systems. But she was a year older than everyone, and yeah, it was in the same year as us. So, yeah, I barely noticed her to begin with. Like, she was the new girl. I remember the day she arrived, she was the new girl, and she kind of showed up, and it was as if she'd appeared out of nowhere, and she was suddenly the new girl, and people were going like, "Oh, there's the new girl," and a little bit of background information that she was South African, I think, and just looked at her, and I was like, ah. She looked gross. She wasn't pretty at that age, so she must have been like 14. And I was like, oh man, her face is everywhere, and looked sort of, I don't know, tall and skinny. Tall and skinny is what I sensed at that time. And I just didn't really think much of her. And then later on, in sixth form, I got to know her quite well, and we had some similar interests that we were taking English and art together. I don't know what other subjects she did. Biology, yeah. And I was doing physics and drama. But yeah, art and English we did together, which was nice. And I'd known her since GCSEs a bit better because she was in the art class. We had like a shared art class where people from different form groups were all doing art for GCSE. I'm sure that's how it works in schools. I don't know anything about schools these days though, because I haven't been to a school for ages. But back in those days, everyone who was doing art all did art together. Well, there was 2 different classes. I can't remember. One class. There's one art class for everyone who wanted to do art, because not as many people wanted to do art. Shoved them all in the same place, so we all did art. So she was in a different form group for everything else, and had been in a different form group since she arrived. So, you know, form groups were like your little fucking gangs, weren't there? There's about 30 people per form group in our school at that time. There were 4 different form groups to begin with, and then there was a 5th one added later. But we didn't really get much to do with the 5th one because by that point our generation had moved on, basically. But there were 4 form groups. She was in another one, and there was a kind of naughty one. There was a naughty form group, you know. The one I was in was mostly not a naughty one. There was another one that we were quite close with that was a little bit naughty, but not really that naughty. And then there were two naughty form groups. They were bad. They were the bad ones. They were always getting in trouble for something. The whole form group like had counselling. One of them, yeah, one of the form groups had like counselling or therapy for the whole form group, because they were just like whack. And then another one was just also full of naughty ones. All the naughty ones were in certain two form groups, and the rest of the other forms were less naughty, if that makes sense. And naughtiness is bad. Yeah. So you have all the pricks in two form groups, and those form groups like were the ones that had all the bullies in that bully everyone else and bully themselves. And all the people who are like doing all the breaking of rules and the smoking of weed in class and whatever, and like drinking and smoking weed and, you know, carving their name into teachers' backs in class and having to have therapy for it. Whereas in the other two forms, they were full of mainly sort of wimpish losers like me and a couple of naughties, but mostly kind of conformist, I suppose, is what you could call it. Conformist people who just knuckled down and did their stuff, did their work, and their fun was more middle class type of fun. So there's a rough sense of ruffianism going on in one of them in particular. There's a lot of ruffians in there. The lower class scum were in one of them, and then there was another form group which was kind of like, this is only my interpretation, by the way. This is just how I perceived it at the time. No, it's how I sort of look back on it and understand it now. Plus mixed in with my memories, obviously. What am I talking about? Like, so you had another form which was like, there was middle class scum, which is like a bunch of arrogant tossers, but all of a wealthier nature. And this was like a bunch of scallywags, all of a kind of poorer background. And then you had the one that I was in, which is full of kind of middle class losers, like didn't really rock the boat. Most of our people were quite subdued overall, like nothing particularly out there. And then you had a couple of the naughty ones. And then the one next to us was a similar nature to ours, but we didn't know them as well as we knew our form, but we had some closer ties with that form group. So it was kind of like us two sets of group, and then the other two. Later on, it got more intermerged as we went to more and more parties and stuff, where there was merging and cross-pollination between groups and friend groups, and it was all sort of moving around at that point. But to begin with, the form groups were very much kind of together in themselves, and then they later intermingled way more. And in the sixth form, they intermingled completely, because the sixth form common room was a mingly place. We had separate form tutor group things, which were all mishmoshed from the previous form ones. So we had like, I can't remember, it was like 17 different ones or something, or 12 different form groups when you're in sixth form, and that was just a interspersement of all the previous ones, so there was no same 4-quadrant type of thing. And then in the sixth form common rooms, just everyone was in there at lunchtimes, or before break time, lunchtime, after school, whatever. So yeah, it all mingled, and by that point, me and Mrs. A had managed to spend enough time together to get to know each other, to start flirting. And I was like, there was this moment, I really just want to tell this point, because this is a specific point in the story where I think this is the moment where I kind of decided that I was going to pursue her properly, or like that I was in love with her or something. Basically, we were in the sixth form common room. I think it was lunchtime, could have been after school, but I think it was lunchtime actually. Yeah, it was lunchtime towards the end maybe. And I saw her like sat on this chair thing. You had a row of chairs and they were back to back. So she was sat on this one, looking out over the other one, and I was like sat probably diagonally to her on the other side. And I saw her, and she was just kind of like a bit slouched and thinking inwardly to herself, and kind of like in a what looked like a sort of not amazingly troubled, but a somewhat troubled daydream, just kind of like a bit forlorn, maybe thinking about stuff inside, like that she was trying to process by the looks of it, and like maybe thinking about memories or drifting off into a little light trance. You know how you do when you're just like kind of zoned out. And at that moment, I saw that happening. I observed that happening. That sort of she drifted off, and I felt like I sort of resonated with her. I felt like I knew what that was. I knew what she was going through. I knew what that feeling was like, because I knew of myself going through that kind of thing. You know how you just drift off into a daydream, and I used to drift off into a daydream every time I was eating my cereal in the morning. I was like, I'd just completely zone out and just like eat my cereal like that. And I knew of what that was, and I knew that it's not a particularly nice place to be, because it's like you're not in touch with anything particularly. You're just zoned out, and it's not like the best of places to be. Sometimes it's nice to be in that state, but I don't really like being in that state personally. So I felt like I wanted to sort of snap her out of it and kind of like, hello, hello, is anybody there? Kind of thing. And I've also felt like I saw myself in her in some way. I saw this connection. I saw like, I know this person. I understand this person. I understand what this person goes through or is going through. On some level, I felt a connection. I was like, I get this person. I understand her. And from that point onwards, I suppose I kind of latched onto her and pursued her, basically. Yeah. I think she was seeing some guy from outside of school, or had been seeing some guy from outside of school, and then it had ended or something, I don't know. And I was just, the way I pursued girls was to try and hang out with them basically after school if I could, and like walk them to the bus stop or something, and just talk to them, basically just find a way to talk to them and get to know them, with their permission, with their permission. I wasn't just tagging along. I just like worked it, worked it out somehow, find a little opportunity to spend some extra time with them. And she was cool with it. She was like happy to chat with me, and I was asking her all kinds of questions about what it was, and she was asking me some stuff as well. And we had a little moment where we were sat on this large stone thing outside the library in Langley waiting for the bus, and we're having a chat about who she fancies or something. And I don't know, I just remember it. And one thing led to another, and we just got closer and went out for some video watching thing at a friend of hers' house. And then she bit me, which was wrong. You should not bite. That annoyed me because it hurt. And why did she bite me anyway? She was trying to flirt, but her flirting was a little bit too bitey. You don't bite. She bit me in the elbow. And I remember telling her off. I was like, don't bite me, because I'm not a fan of being bitten. Thank you very much. So she bit me in a flirty way. I was like, no, I don't care. I'm not a fan of it. Flirt. And I think that worked. That worked quite well, telling her off. Don't bite me. And that was a rule from then on. No biting. All right? No biting. Don't bite me. Okay? Yeah. Don't bite me. That's a lesson for all of you. Don't bite me, or I'll tell you off. And I'll be like, I don't fancy hanging around with you anymore if you're going to bite me all the time. If it's a little nibble, gentle nibble, fine, but don't bite my arm off. Don't bite my nipple. Don't bite my armpit. What's this thing called elbow? Don't bite my elbow in a playful way. Too hard. She's sort of like, I have been bitten by other people since then, and I didn't tell them off as bad. Yeah, who's that bitch who bit me in the fucking pub? Why did I let her bite me for so long? I said, there you go, bite me. I actually said, go on then. I know you want to. Bite me. And she bit me fucking hard. Never do that, by the way. If you offer to someone to bite you, they will bite you fucking hard. Because everyone has a certain need to bite people on a certain level. Some people it's very deep and buried. But, if you bring out the urge to bite, it will fucking come out. And she bit me fucking hard. I don't have much of an urge to bite because I bite things like apples instead of people. But some people have the urge to bite others. What is this? What is this video about? And she bit me, Mrs. A, on the elbow, and that was it. I told her off and put her in her place. And then she told me off about something else because I was asking her, what are you thinking? I was just innocent question, and she said oh, that's a private thoughts. I mean, that's a private area something like that. Anyway, so you shouldn't ask everyone about their thoughts all the time because that's a private area. And I was like, tell me what you're thinking then. What are you thinking? She's like, no, I'm not going to tell you. Shut up, you. Tell me, what is it? What are you thinking? What are you thinking? You like me? What is it? Do you fancy me? That's what it is, isn't it? You thinking about fancying me? Yeah, don't bite me on the elbow though. So she bit me. I told her off, and then, but that must have worked. Must have gone well, because after that, she came round to here, and we had our first little rumble tumble. I think I showed her my artwork. This was a little trick that I used to do with girls. I used to show them my sketchbooks. I showed the last girl who I was going out with before Mrs. A my sketchbooks, and she was like, whoa, yeah. And another thing I showed another previous girl was I used to have this vein in my arm that would bulge, and I did like this kind of arm pumpy thing, and it's not there now anymore, but I used to have this kind of vein, and I would just do that, and I'd like pump out my vein really veiny like, and show that to girls. And I showed it to this girl, and she goes, oh, you don't have to try and impress me. I'm already impressed. Yeah. And I was like, but look at the vein. Look at the vein. She's like, don't worry. I already am impressed. And then I had my hands on her boobs quite soon after that. So that was amazing. Yes. Anyway, oh yeah, so so Mrs. A, we had a little rumbly tumbly, rumbling around on the floor. Oh yeah, because I showed her my artwork, and I showed the previous girl my artwork as well, right? And Mrs. A says to me, "Oh, do you do this to every girl?" And I went, "No, no, only for you." I'm thinking, yeah, I actually do, really. I do, yeah. It's a little trick I do. So I knew she was obviously wanting to feel special, and she maybe baited me out a little bit, like, yeah, I bet he does this to every girl. And I was like, no, only for you, baby. What a cheese. What a sleazy cheese ball. But it worked. I'll tell you that much. It worked real good. Oh, yeah. So we rumbled and tumbled around, play fighting. And then there was a pin moment. And did we kiss then or did we kiss later? There was kissing. And then, after the rumbly tumbly kissing, that was some good rumbly tumbly actually, on the floor there, play fighting. Play fighting is really good. Yeah, play fighting is really good with girls. This is a tip. Play fight with them. If they play fight with you, you're in. And then what tends to happen is you play fight your penis inside them. Play fight and rumble top. Oh, what's that? Accidental. How did your knickers get off? Oh, just having a play fight. Yeah. So, so we rumbly tumblied. Then we kissed, which was nice, very nice. And then we had the most amazing toasted chicken and mayo sandwich I have ever had in the whole history of my life, because it because it came after, whatever that word is, preceded. It came after this amazing chicken. So I'd never had. This is a true fact. I had never had a toasted sandwich, as in not like in a toasted grill sandwich thing. I'd had those, but a sandwich with toast. It was just toast instead of bread. Toasted bread with butter and mayo. Right? I'd never had a toast based sandwich. Never had toast instead of bread on a sandwich. I'd had toasted cheese sandwich, which is where the cheese is toasted on the bread at the same time. And I'd had those pressy grilled cheese and ham sandwiches, and they're like George Foreman type sandwich making, toasty. But I'd never had toasted bread. Get the toast. What do you put in a toaster? Bread. Yeah. Toasted bread. Get the toast. Toasted bread. You get the toast. I'd never had a sandwich made of such glorious thing as toast. Now I have it a lot. I had it the other day. I had it yesterday. I had it today, actually. I have it all the time now. It's the best way you've ever done. Oh, there's too much information in my brain. Okay, so yeah, the toasted sandwich. Toast, a layer of toast with butter. This is how you put the butter on. You get the thing. Wipe it on there. Toast, a layer of butter. Right, mayonnaise. That's there. Chicken bits. Roasted chicken. Roast on the toast. Bits of chicken. Yeah. Maybe, was it cucumber? Was there lettuce? I don't know. Ooh, tricky. And then another, let's put that one down on the plate. Very good. Then you have another one. Toasts. Chicken, not chicken. Butter. Wipe the butter on. And then mayonnaise. Oops, sorry. Yeah, stick them together. And then you have the toasted sandwich, chicken sandwich, toasted chicken and mayo sandwich, possibly with lettuce. But yes, there it was. The most glorious thing I've ever eaten. Ever. Because it proceeded the rumbly tumbling around on the floor with Mrs. A and the kissing. And it was like, oh, ooh, we were all kind of like, oh, that sort of feeling of, yeah, and for all those pheromones and hormones and like feelings of passion, and then there's a sandwich of love and replenishment, and it was tasty. Pardon me, it was tasty, all right. So it was. Yeah, so I'll never forget that sandwich, and I've never been able to recreate that feeling of sandwich. I'm smelling my own fart at the moment. This is fun now. Yesterday I was crying. This is a fun story. So yeah, so that was awesome. Sat out there in the garden, eating the most amazing sandwich that's ever been made. Never able to recreate that sandwich. There must have been something holy in the sandwich. It was a one-time only sandwich. Yeah, I tried to recreate it. It just wasn't the same. I had all the same ingredients: the toast, the butter, the mayonnaise, the other bit of toast, the bit of butter on there as well, the mayonnaise, and the chicken bits. And it just wasn't the same, because it was the first time rumbly tumbling around on the floor with Mrs. A. It was the first time of toasted toast and mayo chicken aise sandwich. Everything was the first time, and everything was the best time ever. So yeah, that was great. Rumbly tumbly. Okay, moving on a little bit. Shaggy had my virginity get whipped away from me. Whipped away from me, without any whips being involved. But it was the most dissatisfying first shagging experience ever in the whole history of the world, because, oh God, Well, I jizzed amazingly quickly, basically, and I basically went in and out a few times, and I jizzed. So, it was embarrassing. And then, however, we did do it another 4 times afterwards. I don't know if I jizzed every time, but we did keep doing it like for the rest of the sort of day. Back in those days, we used to have sex all day long. We used to have sex days where we would just be in bed and just have sex and then lie around and then have sex again and then lie around and have more sex, and we would call it a sex day. Yeah. And those were the days of sex. So that was good fun. Okay. Then there came points in our relationship where we were worried about whether or not we were having too much sex, and was sex bad in principle? You know, is it wrong to have only sex? Should there be more to the relationship than just sex? Was there anything more to the relationship than sex? Of course there was, but maybe we shouldn't have been having so much sex. Why were we having so much sex? It seemed like it shouldn't be allowed. um, I think maybe we were getting sick of it. Oh, I was getting sick of it, and then she was getting sick of it. That we would get like really, really horny, and it would only be about horniness for a while. And I think we lacked the ability to control ourselves, and that was annoying to us. Like, I don't think we liked the fact of being compelled to have sex all the time, but then because there was a certain neediness around it at a certain point as well. So, like, because it was new and because it was amazing and great, we'd developed this neediness and this inability to control ourselves. So we weren't. I think that was annoying us because it was like, oh, we feel compelled and we have to do it, and it wasn't always enjoyable to feel compelled to do something. If that makes sense. So we're like, we've just done it without really. It's like our bodies wanted it, but we weren't really ready for it, or we weren't really wanting of it emotionally. So, yeah. Okay, so that's Mrs. A. Yeah, and we spent a lot of time together. She used to come around to mine after school. Um, we'd sometimes go home for a little nap in the afternoon together. I actually came home one time with her, had sex with her, and then went back to school still with a boner, and then had to do a drama rehearsal with a boner after school. Which I untucked my shirt and just like hope no one would notice. That was embarrassing. Yeah, so we would do that, have a little lunchtime nap and shag, and then go back to school. Yeah. So the best days were where we both had the afternoon off, because in sixth form you didn't have every single lesson in the same way that that you did in the rest of the school. You had free periods. A lot of free periods were going on, and sometimes you would have like the whole afternoon with free periods, so you could just go home early, which was awesome. I liked sixth form in that way because there's a lot of freedom to mess about and go home early, and it was a real um, nice thing to feel like you didn't have to stay in school the whole time, and you're suddenly this more of a free being, and more free than the rest of the school as well. So you had this sense of being like above the world. um, this cool. I liked the sixth form um, dress code thing, which was black trousers as the rest of the school, the white shirt as the rest of the school, but you had this cool black tie, black with stripes of some kind on it, brown and green. I don't know what stripes it were. Gold, I think it was gold and white, something like that. And then black blazers, which I thought were cool because they were black and they were blazers. Well, we had blazers in the previous at the previous level, but the black was cool because it sort of singled you out from the rest of the school, so everyone knew that you were better than them. Everyone knew that you were better than them at that level. They're like, I'm a sixth former. And also, I think there was some lessening of strictness on shoes as well. I feel like I was wearing trainers a lot more when I was in the sixth form, and that we weren't allowed to wear trainers as much. So that was nice. I love wearing trainers and black trousers because it feels like I'm breaking the rules even though I'm not. Yeah. So actually, I think I should get another pair of black trousers. And my butt looks pretty good in black trousers, I must say. It sort of slims my butt down really nice. I've got a giant butt. But the way that black kind of school or business style trousers work is they slim my butt down real nice. So yeah, and they work well with the trainers. I'm telling you, the trainers, some kind of trainer outfit item and school blazer style trousers makes me feel real cool. It always has done. When I was at primary school, it used to make me feel cool wearing trainers at lunchtime, running around wearing my like fucking normal grey wow, we've gone to the hour. Normal grey trousers, but wearing my Nike Air Max trainers with a little bubble in them. Those were cool, man. I had green Nike Air Max trainers with the bubble in them, and this other guy had the ones with the blue thing. Was it blue one? Maybe orange. And I pierced the bubble with a pin, and he got really pissed and upset. And what you don't realise is the bubble is not only, it's not the only springy aspect. There is another part of springiness, because you would have thought, oh, you pierced the bubble, and then all of a sudden it's like, there was a little bit of that. But you have to, that's a mean thing to do. It's like letting down someone's tyres at night, which I don't do very often anymore. Oh dear. Okay. That was a fun session. I want to do more, but I'll do it tomorrow if I have the energy. I was thinking at the beginning of this that I might not carry on with these. I might take a break because it's an hour of talking, and the one before this I was crying. So, and I was feeling a bit knackered before I started this. But we'll see how it goes. I might take a break, I might not. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. You know a bit more about my secondary school experience now. It seems that I'm going back and back in time rather than trying to advance the story forward. But maybe we'll get to a point back in time where I'm like, okay, now I've been born, and then we can move forwards again. We'll see. I don't know. I don't plan it. All right. I'm just talking as things occur to me. All right. Thanks for watching Fieros Storytime on my channel, Fieros Reborn. And remember, you scums, to like me, love me as well. There should be a love me button. Love me, love me, love me. Subscribe, you bastards. Love me. Share my love to your friends and family and work colleagues.